Hello there, Niver Niver Land, Season 2, Episode 3. Guests today are Annie Spaeth from the Lynhall and Denise Everness from Great Tree Healing. And healing is really the emphasis of the show today, figuring out where we are on this ride that is life. Denise Everness has helped Annie and myself in private sessions consider things about ourselves, a little deeper investigation into our own energy and why we are feeling how we are. So today, as you listen, I'm hoping you're going to be open. And you're going to have to be a little bit to understand, the other side of yourself through the energy that you put through and out there into the universe. Anyway, this is Niver Niver Land. Yeah, and that is why we are here today on Niver Niver Land. It kind of sounds corny when I have to introduce the show, but it also is. This is my Niver Niver Land. This is my fantastical place where I get to set up a scene like this with people that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. And we get to talk about stuff.
Awesome.
And today in particular, like I say, I don't know how this comes out after editing or whatever, but it was just so easy to start a conversation with you and to have those sensations and those feelings and those ideas just kind of come forth. Mm-hmm. And that universal healing is exactly what we're going to try to talk about today. Okay. As it goes here on Niver Niver Land, this is season 2. I think we're going to be episode 3. So it's official. And I'm here with two people that one of which I know. The other, I had met a long time ago at Maven, I think quickly over a bagel. We have with us today in Niver Niver Land Annie Spaeth. She's the owner-operator of the Lynhall. Is that what you would say?
I would say that.
Owner-operator of the Lynhall, which we know is a beautiful space. And, on Lindale, with these beautiful murals and this beautiful kitchen where you open up your space to others so they can come in here and create, and that you've given this, space and name, the Linny, inside the Lynhall, and that you've, put this out here for others to use. What an amazing thing.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate that you're doing it. And I know that through COVID, everybody had a hard time with everything, but also those creative minds had to come forward. So hopefully you saw them and they came through here. I saw Yia Vang came through here, and it's just so nice that you're available to have these types of things happen for our industry and outside of our industry. So thanks for welcoming us to the Lynhall today.
Absolutely.
Pleasure, Annie. And also Denise Everness. Denise is somebody both Annie and I know. We've worked with Denise Everness from Great Tree Healing. And Denise has I went to her office and had a session with her, and it was amazing. I feel like I needed a hand with where my energy was, and Denise came forward through another connection. Somebody named Rick that works with Denise. And Rick was a dude that ended up clearing, if you call it that, clearing a space over at 901 Lake, where formerly Maven, formerly Trattoria Mucci. And that's how I got hooked up with Denise. So then I had a session with Denise, and it was fantastic. So welcome, Denise Everness.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that as you are listening, you're staying open to what we're talking about today. This is this is about your energy. This is about the energy of others. This is about a community of energy. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, I don't know anything about it, but I sense it all the time. People walk into the door of the restaurant, and I'm immediately trying to, and without trying to, kind of sensing, I'm sizing them up. right? Because I don't know what they're bringing with them.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. For sure.
So then they walk in my door at the restaurant, and there's got to be some sort of spirit they're picking up on too. Guess what? It's my spirit. What we put out there in terms of our food and our energy and our service, that's what I want, people to kind of sense the place. So as you listen today, stay open. As you listen today, try to believe in something different for a minute. You don't have to commit fully. Just you can try to believe in something and not have to go the full way and commit fully. But you can try even just for a short period of time. Play around with your openness, and if you're not open, okay, this could be fun too. It may sound a little weird to you, but that doesn't mean it's not maybe something that you're affected by. And I was trying to kind of pinpoint a way to introduce this, but this is it, through the work that I do in my restaurants, it's all about this energy and this flow of energy and getting people in the door. And even when it's slow, you're trying to provide that movement so that your staff and everybody's kind of on their way with this. And lastly, if you don't necessarily, as you listen, you don't necessarily believe, I think then you have to consider how you respect things that you don't believe in, because you don't have to believe in something for it to be true. And I just want you to kind of, hear us out maybe on some of this. All right. So we're here at the Linny inside the Lynhall. We kind of set up before with everybody that, Denise just kind of immediately starts sensing these things around the people that are in the room. I'm wondering, Denise, just kind of, if you don't mind getting right to it, just when you walked in here, what happens when you go into places? Do you immediately always start sensing something?
It just varies. It's also my choice, right? To energy, we all have personal freedom and personal choice. So when you work this way and you understand that you are what I would call an empath or someone that's sensitive to energy, you make a decision and a choice. When I was coming in here, I chose to be open to the energy in here, but that's not always the case. And it's also, you don't want to be reading people, right? It's like peeking in a window, right? I think there's an ethical guideline to it, and I stay really true to that. So if people want my insight or want me to look at an energetic situation, I'm happy to do that, but I also don't want to cross lines, just like you wouldn't with others. And also energy it's very personal, and it can be overwhelming. And sometimes I can feel things like, for instance, today after dropping my son off at school, I saw a boy walking, and I could just feel how scared he was and struggling with his own self-value, right? And so I immediately just sent love and light to him and absorbed some of what he was dealing with. And then I had this idea, I need to hug all these kids that are coming into school. Maybe that can be a thing, right? It's just there's such low vibration. So I have to be careful, right? Mm-hmm. So I turn it on when I can and when my energy is full, but I also choose to respect other people's energies as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. As we were standing here kind of again before we started the episode, mm-hmm. You said to me, somebody's experiencing something with their left side.
Yeah. So my left hip is buzzing all the way down still to my feet.
And then I made sure that you knew that I'm experiencing some sciatic pain, mm-hmm. and I have been for some days now.
Yeah.
And it just, we talked about it a minute, and you sent some, I don't know what you sent to me, whatever you sent to me, if you could bottle that up, please. But you sent some good vibes my way, and I kind of felt softer and a little bit lighter, even just kind of, mm-hmm. That you knew that you were sensing me. It was fine. That's a tension in a way, that feels good to me.
Well, it's still buzzing. So it's what I explain to people is our energy is limitless. Really, it is. And just the fact that you and I are close to each other now, it's like energetically our energies coming together. And I set an intention of healing for everyone that was coming today, and actually your listeners who are listening. If they're open to it, breath is life force. They can literally just take a deep breath, see if they feel things shifting. Those that are sensitive to energy might go, whoa, that was cool. Or there might be a release, right? They might start crying, and don't be afraid. It's really just energy, and energy has to move just like everything else. If energy gets stuck, it's stagnant. And with stagnation, think of it as like a balloon that just keeps filling and filling and filling. And you want to keep things flowing so that you don't pop like a balloon, or you don't get sick, because stagnant energy can create illness. So many times there are people that even come in and, the work I do heals people physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because in my world, that we're all those components, right? And then all of those components are working well, it's wonderful. But when something gets stuck, and if it's an energetic thing that gets stuck, that's how I can help people.
Yeah. I said to Matt last week, when we were kind of confirming things here, I looked at him dead in the face. I said, Matt, I don't know how this is going to go. I could cry like Denise and I, like, when we work together, I could totally, have an outburst. And I'm like, don't want to do that on camera. At the same time, I am like, whatever it is, but I was prepared, like, as you say that, because you say like this energy that you have built up, of course, I have that built up, like almost always, like I got two balloons, but but this is exactly it. And I'm so glad, that the timing worked out for us to get together, because, I think, the way that these last 2 years have been, and the things I've had to consider in the last 2 years, that what you, even in one session, but what your team does really opened my eyes to the possibilities.
It's great. That's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
That's all it takes, is just be curious. I tell people all the time, just stay curious.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm not here to make you believe anything. That's not my job, and I don't want that job. But at the same time, I'm here to offer you an experience of yourself, because I know very deeply that you have everything you came fully programmed. But we live in a culture that sort of is heavy. The human world is heavy. It's a heavy vibration, and it makes you doubt yourself, because we put so much emphasis in the mind, right? But the mind is a beautiful tool. It helps you figure things out. It's smart. It's where, academia and all of that, it's important. But really, the truth of who you are isn't in your mind, it's in your heart, right? So it's just learning how to understand that. And when people have these experiences, and we can go with the gifts that I have and the connection to the channel of healing that I do, which is really Reiki, I just have the gift to see where you and the universe are going. And then I have the gift of sharing that. And for people for giving you that perspective. And it can even be, if you're open to it, a lot of past life experience, because you bring all of those stories with you. And sometimes things line up so that these same challenges come your way, right? And when you see that, and I don't know anything about it, but then we can talk about it after, and it's like every time, wow, like it totally makes so much sense to me.
So I was in marriage therapy for a very short time, because I didn't really love the vibe. But the therapist said one thing that was very important. He said that, I think and it was about and we're still together, by the way. It worked out. When you get to a certain point, and there's a big problem, that's that certain point, many people decide to give up and they'll walk away. But then, because it wasn't working, right? But then, so they walk away. So then they get into another relationship, and they usually end up back at that point again, where they're gonna need to decide, am I gonna give up on this again? Or am I actually going to look at what the problem is and fix it so that I can go ahead? Because basically, we tend to repeat these things until we fix them. So you're even saying that in a past life, for example. I didn't, there was a betrayal or whatever. And then in this life, you know, maybe that's something I bump up against again until I fix it.
Right.
Do you think if I fixed it in this life, that the next life would be without it and I'd have a different challenge?
It's like cleaning up karma. That's how I tell people all the time. It's like karmic debris. You're going to keep, like, if I can share, I mean, there's so much to share. But
please.
One particular, a woman came in and she really wanted, she felt, she was another healer. And she said, I've been directed to you because I know there's a past life story underneath a story that I'm currently experiencing, and I'm devastated. My heart is, I just need. And I said, of course, what I always say, I'm not in control. So this is you and the universe, but let's see where we go. And I didn't know anything about her story. So we get in channel, and sure enough, boof, a past life story starts emerging. And it's, I see her with a bonnet, you know, and she's got 1 million kids, like 8 kids maybe running around. It's farm community. And then I start to see this man in the corner. And one of the things she wanted to know was a relationship that she was currently in that wasn't progressing. Okay, she said, I'm in love with this man, but it's just not progressing. I want to marry him and I want to do all this stuff, and it's just not, we're just stuck. So all of a sudden in this vision, as I'm working through her chakras, she and the universe are walking through this story. And I look and I see this man, and he's Amish. It's like that black hat that they wear starts becoming, and he's got a drinking problem, and he's hiding in the corner. And it's very dark. So then all of a sudden he takes me out to a field, and he's showing me himself digging a ditch. And he falls in the ditch with others. He falls, smashes his leg really, really badly, to the point where I think it got infected. That's where he was telling me this is where the drinking came to deal with the pain. Then he brings the book, whatever book, I don't know what that religion is, but there's some book. He brings this book, it's leather. And he's like, I did everything by this book. Why did this happen to me? Really angry with God. Like, I'm pissed. I did everything, like everything in here. I lived the life, and why is this happening to me? You know, why did I die? Why did this happen? Why did I lose my family? Why did I lose my life, right? So the anger was really intense. The community absorbed this woman and her children, but it was a really hard life experience. Okay. So then she said, okay, after the session, can I share with you now, this timeline, the life that I'm living now? Sure. So she said, a few years back, this gentleman that I'm involved with was in a horrible car accident. He is considered disabled. He lives in chronic pain. He has developed a really heavy-duty substance abuse problem. And I'm a healer, and the work I do, he's angry. He doesn't believe it. He's just really angry with God. Again, I said, okay, so let's look at that. To me, in the work I do, that's a parallel. So look at how those things have lined up again. So I said, this story has nothing to do with you. It's not about you. These are his challenges, and this is the work that he has to do. Can you be with him and support him? You can, but you have a choice in this life. I said, I'm just so happy for you that you're not married and you don't have 8 kids, because that would just make it even harder. But I said, and she said, oh my God, I just feel like I just lost 50 pounds. It's like giving someone that perspective when I know nothing, and it validates all of these obstacles.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we all have free will. So I even offered, I said, if he's willing to come in and have a session, I'm willing to do it for free, because he needs healing, and he needs, anything I can do to help him through this, because he came back here to work through this, but he's got to work through it in order to be done with that karma.
Yeah. And how things manifest and move into a bigger, deeper problem through whatever pain, whether it be mental or physical.
Yeah.
That opens up like a whole bunch of, feeling that it needs to somehow either be sensed or cured or before it manifests into something
totally
hard. Annie, tell me a little bit, how did you two hook up?
Well, I think I reached out to you, Tim, and told you this, that I was out in Wyoming waiting for my kids to get out of a kids camp. And the article that Stephanie Marsh had written about you and the experience of the clearing that you did popped into my feed. And I didn't realize at the time that that was an older article. It just came up and started reading it. And I thought, wow, this is some stuff that's resonating. Like, we've had some of these instances happen at Lynhall. And I messaged our team at that time. This was pre-COVID. Our old chef, general manager, Kristen Tyborski, who, as you know, has been in this industry for a long time and has seen a lot of wacky things. Mm-hmm. But she was the subject of 2 of those instances where guests just were acting really strange. I mean, I know people can get upset about food, but it was like these people had sort of lost their minds. So I messaged her and I said, hey, I'm really interested in this. What do you think? She's like, why not? So I went on the link to Denise's website and started reading through it. Didn't know anything really about Reiki other than that I had started on a journey with my minister's sister-in-law, who's a healer, but she's based out of Salem, Oregon. So I knew a little bit about healing from my experience with her, where we were sitting at a table actually down here, and for her gifts show up in that her third eye is open, and she said it's like when she's talking to you, a movie screen kind of pops up next to you, and she can see past experiences. And so that was sort of my first touch with it, but I didn't really understand what Reiki and what energy work was on the level that I do today until I read the article, and then I scheduled Rick to come and do a clearing here, but then saw Denise before I saw him. And I was smiling when you were talking about you don't know how you're going to react when you are around Denise, because it is really powerful. I mean, my first session with her, when her office was just down the street here on Bryant, I just started crying and sobbing uncontrollably, and at that time didn't realize that I was carrying a lot of childhood trauma of a family member. And it was like the strangest, experience, because I knew intellectually that I was sobbing. And I've never cried in that way, where it was just like a water fountain of tears, and to the point that my body was sort of just like convulsing. I was sobbing so hard. And Denise, and the way that she does, was so kind and just said, we're just going to stay here for a while until this clears. And then just like that, it just passed. And I just felt, as she described with this other client, just a tremendous weight lifted off of me. And I left that first session, and I think I tried to come back here and have a meeting, and I was so exhausted. I went home and slept, I don't know how many hours. But it's interesting how you don't realize how much energy you're carrying, whether it is connected to a current dynamic or a past life, but what she has done to help open my heart center, which was very blocked. I mean, I remember her saying at the time, you have a mountain on top of your heart, like you are protecting yourself so much. And, and I also was smiling thinking about when you were talking about this karma and past life. One of the most beautiful things about working with Denise is really understanding more the perspective, right? Is that, these events that happen in your life and you don't understand why it is that you're responding so strongly. So when you were giving that example of the marriage therapist, until you understand your relationships and how those may have played out in past life imprints, it can be really disturbing, right? I mean, I come from a background of dealing with abused children and prosecuting those cases and understanding childhood trauma. But still, for you to continue to react as strongly when things trigger you, but now to understand it in a larger universal way, it really gives you such great peace and calm. And what Denise has given to me, and Rick and the other healers that I've now come to know, is a tremendous amount of peace. I think there's so much, I didn't realize how much of a fear-based life that I was leading. And now working with Denise, she's always saying to me and reminding me, the universe only wants your greatest good. And it's all what this work is about, is really uncovering through the journey with her and with these other healers, that again are people that you trust, because as you know, it's a very vulnerable place to put yourself. But to think about the large expanse of what the universe truly wants for you, and to start seeing the world through that perspective, it's really beautiful, right? It's really calming and peaceful. And we talk a lot about how much suffering goes on in this world.
Yeah.
And, that's all really, in a lot of ways, self-imposed. And when you can break through that barrier and get out of that lower vibration of fear, which so many of us live in, especially in this day and age, and you really just let go of that and believe that there is a higher guiding power, whatever you believe that is, it's really freeing to just like every day roll out of bed and be like, wow, this is exciting. Let's see what today holds for me.
Yeah. Well, and I found Rick through a friend of mine. Rick works at Great Tree Healing, and he does more of spatial building, clearing of buildings and things. And when we I'm glad you saw that article. That was kind of an unrealized outcome of this, was that Stephanie March had an experience in that same space, Trattoria Mucci, where somebody literally walked over to their table and said, this guy said, I'm going to be your worst nightmare, and he poured a glass of water on top of this person's head. In the Trattoria Mucci space, it was previously Spill the Wine when this happened. And then later the guy, because it was a special invite night, they knew basically who this guy was. It wasn't like some stranger off the street. And so I think she got to ask him what happened. He's like, I don't know what possessed me. And so I get Rick to come through this space, and it's got a history of being, people call it cursed, like a cursed space. And I really don't dig that. I don't like that at all. It kind of
It's not cursed. You had a portal in the basement.
We had a portal in the basement.
So when you called me, that's exactly what I saw. And that's just an opening, like a doorway to a different dimension. And things are just come in. And that's why your space is sacred, and why it's good to just close those things down.
Oh, yeah. Well, there had been a lot going on in that corner, like always, outside the building and inside the building. When I brought Rick over it was after Maven closed, and I said this very respectfully, but Maven was kind of a shit show, and so in that space we had numerous things happen. It seemed like our managers had one thing after another kind of negatively occur, and it was just like, Lord, how do we provide this? Giving, space, make it busy. Don't have it be prohibitive because of what this, what spiritually is, coming through our walls, like literally. But Rick came through. I had a group of 8 of us walk with him, and I made sure everybody was like, hey, if you're here, you got to be willing to like be here, okay, please, because I want you to see this and I want you to experience it. It's my first time too. But we walked through, and when he started speaking in tongues, in a language that he knew, kind of, and when he closed the portal, and when he saw different spirits and talked about why they were coming there, he said this was just like a free-flowing thing. And it seemed like more of an angry portal than it was anything else, or it was just active. And he's like, we just got to get rid of this energy. And he takes that negative energy from the space into his body. He cleans it and then sends it right back out. And so, when that's happening, he's got this kind of gyration going on, and it's a little, for a first timer, I was kind of like, oh, whoa,
it's a little unnerving.
It's a little unnerving. And Sandy was there with him, kind of, near him, and she was picking up on like a little bit different things, or kind of going in with, I don't know, with Rick. It was, I think it was such a vital experience, right? And I didn't know what to expect, but it was a vital experience. We get done with him closing a portal in this one corner and releasing the ghosts, saying, hey, man, you can go do your thing. Don't wait here. And he's like, basically, I give you permission as a spirit to go on your way. Really that easy.
Yep.
And so, what were we experiencing before, this all happened? I just think it was like a really rapid river there. I just think everybody was kind of getting tossed around in that space a little bit. And we always bring our vibe. Like somebody said to me when we opened up the strip club, they were sitting up in this one, that's a restaurant. It was up in this front corner table. And she looks at me and she goes, somebody hung themselves upstairs. And I'm like, okay. She's like, you should probably do a clearing. And at the time I looked at her and I said, hey, I appreciate that. I was less of a open person then. I appreciate that. But I went with my feeling, and that feeling was whoever was there was fine with me. And it was fine. I didn't need him to go. But I understand now it was about them finding their way out.
Yeah.
So this is, when you stand around people who are in tune, you can really feel that. And, the energy that we provided at the strip club was all boisterous anyway. We were, that was a boisterous place. We were kind of like running the corner. So the energy was really cool there. But Rick, after he left, I had the opportunity to save my own ass and open Trattoria Mucci. And it was going gangbusters. We were doing really, really well. Yeah. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then George Floyd happened. And the amount of energy that was expended on Lake Street, all of that anger,
sorrow,
the pain, literally pounded into the streets.
Totally.
Pounded into the streets.
You can feel it if you're sensitive to energy. It's getting better, but there's still a lot of healing that's and releasing and shifting that Mother Earth actually absorbed.
So Rick came back. We were lucky to sit with him again, stand, whatever, walk around the place. And he goes, hey, really the energy I see here is the way it should be, but all of the ground around here, all of the land, and he's like, it's a wide swath.
Totally.
And he's like, I think I might try to create these points and around it, surround that energy and see if I can heal some of it. But when he came back, he was literally trying to connect Mother Earth. Is it Father Sky?
Yeah.
Mother Earth and Father Sky. He in the moment reconnected them as though we were some sort of fountain of good in the middle of this dark swath.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt when he came back a second time, that I had a chance amidst this shit that was going on, that we did everything we could with the energy there. That doesn't mean I can save a business financially.
There are many factors.
Many
always.
Factors. But that building is not cursed. That building is clean. That building is ready to go.
It's ready to go. It's just the area that it's in is just in a healing process and a shifting process.
Yes.
And it affects everyone.
It does affect everyone. But it will be back. It will come back. And I firmly believe that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to stay there. Because when we were when we had the Town Talk Diner, also down on Lake Street, which burned out in the unrest. Anyway, when I had the Town Talk Diner down there, it was so hard to be there. I was told not to go there. Like there was syringes in the alley and but this is like real place. It had such a sense of itself. That sign, when you walk in there, it had all of the history. Like you're just like paging through it when you walk into this place. And so Lake Street has a certain amount of, I wanted to stay in Lake Street because we made it through in the Town Talk Diner, through the construction and through whatever went there. And then it didn't make it ultimately, but that's okay. But, this Lake Street thing, it just, I'm a little sensitive about not being able to finish the job or be there when it's the hardest for the people that are there. Because I did have, while it was hard to keep going because of business, I did have the right energy there to to go forward. And I think the next person in that space will be good to go. I really believe that. Thanks for your help with that space.
You're welcome.
So if you had to say, I know you're busy and I know you have a lot of clients, but the most important aspect of your work when you're sitting with somebody, what do you think becomes, do different priorities pop up first? Is it what you sense and that's what you go for?
In the work, I'm very humble in my work because these are my gifts, but I'm also not the one changing anything. It's like the person walks in and I say, congratulations, you made a contract with the universe to do some healing. So where we go today is really between you and the universe, and I'll just tell the story. And I'm the conduit. I'm like the power cord. And because the most important part is that they understand that they have everything in themselves already. It's just rediscovering. I would say probably one of the best things that happens in sessions over and over is seeing people connected to their power. It's like reconnecting things that have gotten disconnected. And when you're disconnected from your own power source, life gets really hard. And, I see it in children that come in, right? And they're so great. They shift really fast. Literally, like they don't have as much energetic debris as adults. So when they shift, it's like fun. And, they come out and they're smiling and it's like all of a sudden they're reconnected to their magic, right? That's them. And I always tell people too, like, this isn't like your fingerprint of who you are as a person is completely unique and nobody else is like you, right? And when they see that, and it can be many things, right? This isn't about religion. It's not about belief. It's about you. It's about your sacred space of who you are. And I tell people, religions, it's not about believing one system. So I'll have people that get afraid. They'll be like, well, I'm Christian and I don't want this to like cry. Like I feel like what I'm doing is wrong, right? No, it's so unique and different. And I've had sessions where if you're religious, sure, there might be symbols of what you're connected to but it's so much bigger than that, right? Your spirituality is as unique as your fingerprints. And it can be many religions. You can be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Shamanic, elemental. I mean, it's endless. It doesn't matter, right? I look at spirituality as the ocean, and I look at religion as a fishbowl just floating in this vast ocean. So sometimes when you're so restricted by one belief system and there's just so much more, I love when people just open their eyes, right? Like I had a woman who came to me and she just came in, and the first thing I said, I said, oh my gosh, like spirit animals come to me, so I'm very connected to animal vibration. Anyway, all these birds just started flying in. I said, whoa, there are so many birds in your session coming in to my third eye. It's crazy. And she's like, oh my gosh, I know, right? I like everywhere I go, there's birds and everywhere and this and that. And it's just crazy. And I'm like, is it crazy or is it a spiritual message? And she said, oh, I don't know. And then of course in her session, of course, birds. To me, birds are messengers or spiritual messengers, right? So she found that interesting, right? And so I got a text from her the next day, OMG, Denise, I was on a walk with my best friend. I was sharing everything about our session because it was so fun and exciting and amazing. And all of a sudden I stopped and I looked down and there was a bird's nest sitting right at the base of my feet. And I said, perfect. How are you going to interpret that? Are you going to interpret that as another coincidence, weird thing? Or are you going to take that as a message? And she wrote right back, oh, it's a message and I get it now. And I'm so grateful, right? And then the next session she had with me, literally I was getting into my car and birds were dive bombing my head and I kind of forgot about, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to see so-and-so.
Crazy.
To me, it's crazy, but it just makes the world so much brighter, right? Because I know it's so much more.
This energy thing, like I definitely, like I say, when people walk in the door, in the way you work with employees, like, having the right energy, and it's kind of hard correcting when you're not, you don't want to ride the emotion so much as you're recognizing that you're having the emotion. You can have the emotion, you don't have to like react to the emotion. You can realize it's going on and sense it. And you know, I think a lot of people just need to kind of really reconsider and, like you say, open up to the idea that there's something else out there, and there definitely is. I know that people come back to I've heard people say, well, you know, it's a Niver place. And I know they're connecting to who I am. And it is not regardless of the others, but if they know me, they're connecting that to that place. And that is that energy that we're all putting out. And I think, you know, as restaurateurs, as people, I was talking with Congressman Dean Phillips yesterday, as I mentioned. And he said one of the biggest things people need to work on is just generally being kind in their common decency. So if you're even like putting that friendly face up forward, that friendly energy, he really believes that the simplicity of how nice we can be would change things. And so do I.
Totally.
Like that energy forward, the acceptance, the forgiveness. You have to like forgive things about yourself, so that you're not sitting in it, thinking you're a bad person. We all make mistakes. Flaws are everywhere. Little things. I'm reprogramming fully based on what I think my programming was when I was a kid. Right? And I'm not old, but I'm 52. And when I was a kid, like, I know right and wrong, but I did not have the elaborate display of everything that was out there in the world until I was deep into my life. And so I just, you know, I had to really rethink, you know, was my childhood perfect? No, it was really good. Privileged childhood. But wow, you know, I had some stuff to work on there. My mom, she's got the energy like me, like kind of like Anya, you know? But my grandmother, Noni, she had this kind of calm that my mom didn't have. But Noni's hands were always moving, always moving. So I'm just remembering all this energy from them from my childhood and then trying to figure out, you know, God, you know, I have to forgive some things. You know, I have my son and I, he's 15. He's not necessarily jiving with me right now because of some things that I did or said years ago. And we're working on it, right? He loves me. I love him. But, you know, he's been hanging on to this thing for a long time. And I'm like, oh, man, it's my fault because I said this thing. You know, as a parent, parents are so imperfect.
Totally.
And so, you know, this is what we're now dealing with. And I can at least sense it on him, you know. And he finally told me it was bothering him. Awesome. So energy is everywhere, and then you have to be willing to want to talk about the hard things or realize them. I too sobbed like a baby in my session with Denise, and it was a loud sob too. Like my mouth was, you know, and I was crying, and it felt so fucking good to just get it out.
So emotion's sacred. Right? And I teach people this too. So sorrow, anger, those are sacred emotions, right? We're taught to like not cry. We're taught to not be angry because if we show anger, we're a bad person, right? So when you're talking about reprogramming, that's so key, and releasing anger. So when you hold on to anger, right, because you've been wronged or someone's done something, to me, literally, I see people, it's like hot coal, burning coals in your hands, and you're waiting to release them so that you can hurt someone, so that you can send that hurt back, right? But in the meantime, you're hurting yourself, right? Your hands are burning. It's so much better to release it and drop it. It's just, it doesn't serve a purpose, and that's also moving through it. So that's through forgiveness. But it's important for people to know that all of emotions are sacred, and really flowing through them all is the best. So feel it, let it out, right? Move it through it, because it doesn't disappear. You have to kind of stay in the river, right? Without paddles, without oars, just let the universe guide you. But yeah, releasing that anger and sorrow is so huge.
Well, you got me too. And it felt so good. And I was so pleased with just kind of the general buzz that I had when I left there. And you know, the thing I think that helped me perhaps do something like Niver Niver Lands, where I'm being vulnerable as I can in a new situation, but also it's comfortable to me because I love these chats, but I end up being an introvert. Anyway, in our session, you said something about either me being a lighthouse or a reference to a lighthouse where you're saying, I think, Tim, you know, you could be the lighthouse and people, there's a road, you said, and it goes underneath the lighthouse. And for me, that was a message that I took was, people do come to me for advice. People do come to me and say, hey, Niver, you know, what's up with this? And I try to meet with everyone I can. And I'm like, maybe if I had something like Niver Niver Land, that I could, you know, cast a light on things. Dude shows up with his logo. I just pointed at Matt Gundrum. He shows up with his logo for his production company that he started kind of because we were doing because I reached out to him, and so he started a company, Gleam Tower Media, and a lighthouse is this freaking
awesome
logo.
And you didn't tell him that story before.
I didn't tell him that story.
It's news to me right now, by the way.
Well, that's why I think it's important.
So
I think it's important to point out that distinction is that it goes back to what I said earlier, which again, if you get the fog off of your glasses and you start seeing the world through these beautiful people present themselves, things happen.
Yes.
Like that's where the magic is.
Yes.
That's
When
being
you-
in the flow.
That's being in the flow. That's when you take your hands off the wheel and you just trust. And I just think that is such a beautiful way to live. And when I see people around me, you know, my own family members included, that are suffering and struggling with issues as they come up, you know, I try to remind them. And there's another wonderful mentor and teacher, Drake Powell, who he is always reminding me that you are the warrior, but you need to get your practice in order so that when these life events come up that are triggering or upsetting, you stay grounded and you understand that this isn't about you. I love how he used to say, do you remember what his saying was? Oh my gosh, I'm
There's
totally
so
gapping
many.
out. This is like middle-age fog.
it's a different fog.
I think there's we were just talking about this morning as a team before you got here. We live in a very egocentric world, right? And when something happens to you, a lot of people look at that as, why is this happening to me? They want to live in that place of victimhood instead of understanding it from the other way, which is, why is this happening for me? And I think when you start seeing the world through that lens and recognizing that each one of these things that are happening or presenting as so-called challenges, it really is about you stepping up and realizing that that's still the universe reminding you that this is something that you need to learn.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's something really freeing about that. I talk to my kids about this all the time when they get frustrated. Instead of you shutting down and feeling like, woe is me, why is this happening to me? Recognize that it's the universe presenting you with a challenge that it knows you can work through. Like Denise talked about, working through emotions. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, you know from the experience of seeing Denise, the last session I had with her, I was shut down on all 7 of my chakras. And the interesting thing is that I wasn't sleeping, I was ruminating, I was sick to my stomach, I was struggling with communicating. And then I go in and she says, you're exactly where you need to be.
Roto-rooter for the chakras, huh? Like, unblock that, get it going, get the flow happening. I love the idea of being in the flow.
Oh, yeah.
I think my hands are still on
hard.
the wheel a little bit. Okay.
It's hard. I mean, that's the mental piece, right? And that's where we live in a culture that teaches us that that's where we go.
Yeah.
Everything is logical. Everything has to be figured out. I just had a little boy in, and he was really fearful of going to sleep, right? He just couldn't go. He'd go into super fear mode where it was disrupting his sleep and it was just affecting his whole life. And you don't want to see that fear take over. He's about 11. So I told him, the truth isn't in your mind, right? Go into your heart. So I said, let's take the bubble of what you're afraid of. Can you put it in a bubble? And then can you push it into your heart space? Because the heart is what connects us to the universal truth. And he looked at me and he said, I can do that. I can do that. Yeah. It was like, yeah, easy. I got it. And I guess he's just, that's gone, right? It's like teaching him how to kind of redirect some channels. And I think it's so helpful for so many of us because we live in a culture that's very judgmental and it teaches you, oh my God, I'm not good enough. But that's not the story. If it's a challenge that shows up, it's because it's something that you've come here to be done with. And you look at it, the shadow's a teacher. Remember I was saying that when I saw you. So that's something I've learned. I've learned the shadow, just like the light, like the universe is a dance between the light and the shadow, and shadow are challenges, but you move through shadow real fast, right? And the lessons come quick. So sometimes when you get triggered by something, when all of a sudden something happens and you're like, oh, and you feel it, you say gratitude. Okay, this is something I still need to work through. This is triggering me because this is a wound that I still am working through. So thank you, universe, for triggering me. And I still obviously have some more work to do. And it's when you're not triggered anymore by events that you were in the past, that's how you know that you're healing. And it's beautiful. Such a good feeling.
Yeah.
You know you're doing your work.
I like doing that work. I like thinking about those things.
It's fun. I
like trying harder.
It's fun.
For myself. I see my daughter's kind of witchy. She
awesome.
puts spell bottles around. She does. It's what, Wicca?
Sure. There's so many.
And it's just that she's open. And she needed an outlet. And she has so many gifts. But it's also confusing. And she's trying to to have some sort of answer I went out with her one night in a full moon, which it is right now.
Yeah.
And she did a little, I don't know, a seance or I don't know what you call the thing, but it was so cool that she had a whole order of things and she was telling me about it.
I love it.
And I got to share that with her. And it was really cool. She has her energized water bottles with all the symbols on them, that she charges outside in full moons and stuff like this. And I'm glad she's connected. I'm really glad.
So good.
My son is not. Absolutely the opposite.
He's on his own journey.
He sure is.
He's on his own journey. And that's okay.
I'd love you to see him. I'd love you to see him. Because I just feel like, he's kind of a tough nut to crack. And I would just love you to have maybe you help him see him. Because he's just so wonderful.
A fantastic college hockey player and super, and you have these things. So this is why you don't want to judge people, right? You think, oh boy, this is masculine energy and blah, blah, blah. And this boy was on my table and I got to the left side and I said, oh, you're really connected to the fairy realm. And I thought, oh God, this kid's going to be like, you are crazy. I'm out of here. And I'm telling, this buff, very successful college hockey guy, right? And he goes, I don't know what, but that resonates with me really deeply. And I said, awesome. So it's just you telling me the story of you. So to me, earth-based. So your daughter probably has a really strong connection to earth-based medicine, and it's things that she knows.
Absolutely.
And I love it. I mean, hey, my kids think I'm cringy. I'm just going to be honest. I'm like, but that's their choice. And I don't push it on it, just like I don't push anything on anybody. Once in a while, they'll come to me, but
you're
that's
so
okay.
Not cringy. Like I had told you earlier, and I wasn't trying to be creepy when you were sensing my hip energy. I'm like, I just want to move closer to you.
It's still buzzing. My hip is still buzzing.
So, Tim, I really want to say how grateful I am for this connection because, this has absolutely changed my life. It's changed my children. I get all.
Oh.
But I have to tell you that I think it's beautiful that as a man you're willing to speak about this because I think in our society, talking about your son, He's tearing up. No, I'm tearing up. We're all going to be crying.
This is us, though, right?
This is right. So I have 3 boys, and I really feel deeply that there is a male sort of masculine suffering. Like, we need to just persevere and not talk about our feelings. And I think that is why we have such high levels of teenage and young men committing suicide and turning to alcohol and drugs, because the pain is so deep. And I look at my 3 boys, and as Denise knows, like, they all are incredibly gifted and incredibly empathic. And one of the wonderful things about Denise is that it isn't their mom saying, you need to speak, you need to talk about your emotions. It's Denise, in a way, empowering them to understand their own intuitive gifts and why it is that life can be harder for them at times. And I won't identify which of my children this is, but he needed to leave hockey because it was such an intense sport for him, walking into a hockey rink with screaming parents and screaming coaches, and he just needed to walk away from the sport. He felt a lot of, I think, confliction about that at the time that he did it, because of the fact that he felt like he was supposed to do it because he was a great skater and he was a boy, and, you know, had all this garbage that society put on him, or maybe to a certain extent we as parents did not even realizing it. But I think it's really beautiful that you're willing to be vulnerable, Tim, because I, for one, so my landlord of this building, Paul Hyde, he started down this journey, and it has been monumental for him. And I think I can speak on his behalf because he was featured in this article in the Star Tribune, which I was asked to be a part of, you were a part of. And I said no, because I was concerned about the fact that it was put into the context of as if there's like ghosts and goblins and, you know, the whole reality TV. And I said to the reporter, I respect you as a writer, and I respect that you want to write this article, but I'm really concerned that this will just play to the popular narrative that's out there about ghosts and haunted spaces and things, when this is so much more nuanced and beautiful, and this is about healing people. This is about helping people discover who they truly are, and that's really empowering. But I will tell you that I learned from my landlord after the fact that once he was in that article, he's in the, you know, commercial real estate business, that many of his friends were making fun of him. And, you know, it just, to me, why you need to fault someone or shame them when they're on their own journey of healing, it's really a disservice, right? I mean, we all have our own baggage that we're carrying through life and we're trying to understand, but I just can't thank you enough for doing that, because you spoke to your own experience of what happened after you had your space cleared. But he shared with me, you know, an incredible story about a property that he's developing out in Colorado. And he said it was horrible. I mean, they were running into zoning issues, problems like at every turn. Somebody was injured on the job site. And he said, and then somebody died. I mean, it was just like subcontractors fighting with subcontractors and just all of these problems. And, you know, had Rick, who happened to be out in Colorado visiting his kids, come over and, you know, figure out what was going on. And he said it was like night and day. So again, when you asked people, your listeners at the start of this, to really be open to it, you know, again, I think people will want to stay in the space of, oh, well, it's witchcraft, or it's this or it's that. But it really is a beautiful thing that if you're willing to tap into it, and you can see, just like you experienced on your continued journey, how we've experienced here, and not just in a commercial setting. I mean, this can be done in your home. It can be done in spaces like out in Colorado where it's a job site. But night and day, there was a difference in that experience for him on that job site. And now these subcontractors are saying, this is the best experience I've ever had. I don't want this building to ever end. It's that kind of work that if we each individually did that, think about how much of a powerful shift there would be in our cities, in our country, in our states. I mean, it's just really powerful.
That was an elemental. So he also asked me to check in energetically, because I have that gift. I can check energy. I don't have to be there. I can talk to it wherever it is. And I saw this huge elemental like it looked like a worm almost, just, and it was set up by Native Americans. So it goes back to fighting for land and cursing land that was taken away. Okay, so then I found out, exactly, that's what the history of this is, right? So that's what Rick removed, and that was really amazing.
Yeah.
But it goes to deeper stories, to everything.
Is. Well, like, and we were talking about on Lake Street, how that energy gets pounded into the ground, and how it's going to take a while to release, and, you know, so... Thanks so much, Annie, because this means a lot to me too. And I think the message really is, whether somebody meets with Denise or not, that there's a consideration that you can make today on your own about either suspending disbelief or about trying to believe in something. Or when you look at somebody, just spread that good energy. Just give it to them, even if it's hard for you. And you know, I feel pretty blessed that I got to sit in this room with you two today, and Matt and Mitch too, by that standard, because it feels good to talk about this stuff, just introducing it.
Yeah, just being
to some, and then others who are gonna like hear this and be like, oh shit, you know, like I totally know this.
Or just being open. Like, I have an experience. Do you mind if I share about up in Duluth, where I was, and when we talk about ghosts, sometimes these are energies that are stuck. It's kind of like if they died in a tragic way, it's like they're in a loop, right? So I stayed in a hotel that's been there for a while, woke up in the middle of the night, something flicked my forehead so hard it woke me up, it hurt. And my younger son's like, Mom, I hear like chatting by the ice machine, but there's no one out there. And I'm like, okay, something's here, but something's trying to get my attention. So we go up to the top floor. We're having breakfast, and this waiter starts waiting on us. And I said, can I just ask you something? I said, I hope I'm not, but I said that there's a man that's in my room and woke me up, and there's some darkness that he's trapped in darkness, right? And I said, it's probably none of my business. And he said, well, what room are you in? And I shared, and he went white, right? His eyes. And he's like, I know there was a man that killed himself in that room, right? And he said, I was the waiter that gave him his last meal. And it's been so difficult for me. And he just was like, I want to thank you so much. And so I said, hey, I know Rick, we can clear it out. He's stuck, right? And so no surprise that I was put in that room. Okay, yes. This is what I mean about just staying open. You're
seeing it.
Just be open to it. And so it was all meant to be. And this man was in tears because it's something that he was struggling with, just being that person and someone suffering in that way.
You were up for breakfast and he walked up and was giving you OJ,
so,
but
again,
also like thinking about this dude that was so sad and took his own life. I mean,
and then knowing that I helped him get unstuck was like tears, right? Yeah. So again, like I said to the bird lady, right? It's like no coincidence to me. That all lined up because it was meant to be. That's energy. And empaths, people that are sensitive to energy, you know, you might feel this if you're someone that like your mood shifts really quickly. Always ask yourself, is that mine or is it someone else? And if it's something else, you can choose to release it, right? So there's many tools and resources, and people that are empathic sometimes don't even know they are.
Oh God, you're like a magnet to like other people's shit. And it's like, oh God, I'm gonna carry a little of this, I'm gonna carry a little of that.
Right.
Well, and I think
I get into that all the time. Like, and I want to be helpful for everybody. I also want to stay the hell out of it. I don't have room.
Right.
Well, and I think, again, this is such an important piece when we talk about that we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. I mean, you can't turn on the news without that being first and foremost in the media. And it's like, Denise and I have had long conversations about this because we have teenage kids and you have teenagers, right? Yeah. You know how hard the world is today with the amount of information that is coming in. And do we really have a mental health crisis, or do we have a whole generation of children that is incredibly sensitive to energy and doesn't know how to deal with it? And if they were given the tools to understand, this isn't me. I'm in a hockey rink with screaming parents and screaming coaches. Now I feel empowered because I understand there isn't something that's wrong with me. it's just the intensity of the energy of what our world is like today for these kids. And as Denise always says, you know, children move so quickly because they haven't gotten to the point like we have as adults where we're just tamping down on, I don't want to believe that. I don't, well, and you don't, you know what it's like. You shove down the emotions and then you have a powerful session with Denise and all of that it's like a dam that releases. Kids haven't done that. And yet, and on top of that, they don't understand what they're feeling, and maybe they're in environments at home where things aren't healthy, and they're going to school and there's kids that are really intense around them. I just think that there's a larger conversation, and trust me, I've had these conversations with integrative medicine doctors in town. That
God, you're so cool.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. Like you're like digging in.
This
is
cool.
like
Community.
Oh my God, because it is about. I've mentioned community healing because there is a bigger picture we have to consider these days. We have to like readjust to each other so much.
But you know what's so cool is like Western medicine is finally getting it.
Yeah.
So right before COVID, Denise knows this and she's smiling at me. You know, we started a series here at Lynhall called the Nourish series. And that really came out of, when I used to prosecute child abuse and neglect cases and worked in children's mental health for several years leading up to opening Lynhall, I really wanted those conversations to continue in the restaurant setting, because all of a sudden I looked around me and realized how many trauma behaviors I was seeing on a daily basis, not just from our staff, but from people walking through our doors. So I wanted to start having those conversations so people could understand what my mentors had taught me about what that is, and then feeling empowered on how they deal with all of those big emotions. But right before COVID hit, I shared with Dr. Greg Plonikoff, who's like our house in town. If you ever watched that show House, if you remember that, about, the doctor that would figure out all these weird, rare things that were going on with people. That's Greg. And he's here. Like, he literally his office is in Loring Park. And I remember saying to him, we've had a lot of conversations about integrative medicine, and we've talked about it in the context of like what he does is really get to the core of why it is that somebody has chronic fatigue and doesn't understand. And it turns out it's like a zinc issue or a severe vitamin D deficiency. Right. But as we were going into COVID, I started sharing with him this journey I'd been on with Denise and with Rick. And I said, do you think energy could play a larger part in this, Greg? Do you believe in that? And he looked at his colleague at that time, Dr. Kat Hopkins, and he said, do you want to tell her or should I? And she said, well, I need you to know we just came back from a conference, an integrative medicine practice conference. And one of the big keynote speakers was about no amount of Western medicine, no amount of prescriptions and talk therapy will aid people until you heal them at the cellular level. That's spirituality. That's the universe, right? That shit's cool.
Yeah.
To know that Western medicine doctors are now understanding we're not going to get any movement here. We're not going to see true healing for our patients until we can access the gifts of people like Denise.
Spirits, the good energy.
Cellular memory, right? It goes 7 generations back. This happens all the time in sessions where it's a ancestral pattern and I can see it, and you go back to go forward. That's what healing does. You go back to go forward. I had a gentleman come in, had chronic pain in his shoulders, couldn't lift them, was very physically active. No one could figure it out. This happens a lot. I've been to the Mayo, I've been this and that. No one can. So I said, well, if it's an energetic thing that's stuck, then that's where I come in.
I can do it.
So he was on the table halfway through the session. All of a sudden, I started seeing World War II. I started seeing the islands with the Japanese. I started seeing him with a troop being taken prisoner. I started seeing machetes or big knives and the slice, kind of some torturing right in the shoulders. He called me 2 weeks later and said, I don't even know what to say, but the pain in my shoulder is completely gone. And I just can't thank you enough. So to me, that's an imprint of energy. Mm-hmm. Something triggered him. That's how I would describe it. But again, to each their own. But something triggered that imprint of that energetic experience that he had as an energetic being, because to me, our energy goes way back. And he got triggered, and that pain came back, and that's where it was holding. So we released it.
Did he find the trigger?
that was the trigger. The past life.
The
past life imprint of being tortured. Something, I don't know if he knew
Something
exactly.
brought that up,
something brought that up. And so then he went back into that. And that's where that pain was caused. So it was, I don't know, to again, just be open and curious about it. But I've had people sit up on the table, right, and say, I didn't even know they were having an issue. And they're like sitting up, eyes wide open. I said, are you okay? I don't know. I have no pain in my back. I said, well, that's wonderful. You know me. Oh, that's just so great. That's just so wonderful. I'm so happy, right? And they're like, no. They like grab me and they're like, you don't understand. I live in chronic pain. I've lived in pain for 10 years and I'm sitting here and I'm not in any pain. And you need to explain to me why I'm not. I mean, this is my life for 10 years. And I said, all that I can explain to you is that it was an energetic block and it's been removed. I mean, I've been to the Mayo, I've been to chiropractors. I live with this pain and I'm not feeling any pain. And she was kind of freaking out. As you can, I don't know. I guess if you
that
were
release of tension alone.
So then she's driving by and rolling her window down. She's like, I still am having no pain. Like, I'm like, oh, that's so great.
Oh, yeah.
So, does that happen? I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen to everyone, but if it's an energetic block like that, that's where energy work and the cellular memory.
Consider that, if you're feeling weird and you can't figure it out, look at your energy. Do something.
I had a woman, I mean, I could just sit here for hours, right? I had a woman come in who's an amazing woman. Like, you would look at this woman and you'd be like, oh, I would want to be her. Just beautiful, glamorous, like really, I mean, just she called me. She's like, I think I'm dying. I'm losing weight. I've been to the Mayo. I've had everything. No one can find anything wrong with me, Denise. Something is going on. So I said, come in. Whoa. When we entered Sacred Channel, I saw this blob. Like, I can't even, it was like taking up half of the room. It was an energy that was sucking her life force energy. It didn't even have any dimensions. I can't understand. But I said, okay, first of all, the good news is that I'm seeing is that you're not dying, but something's feeding off of your life force. This is a whole nother rabbit hole conversation. But through the session, we got it disconnected.
Oh.
Her mom came in like a week later crying and just saying, you brought her back and we're so grateful. And she's like, oh my God, I'm back. It's like, I'm back. So energy, when people are low, when people are vulnerable, they can become victims of low vibration energy. That was an actual thing that was feeding off of this woman's beautiful life force because she was vulnerable at one point. So,
well, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I've also learned about Denise is we all have the power to keep ourselves in that higher vibration and in that place of light rather than shadow and darkness. And I think we as humans, unfortunately, going back to that victimhood comment that I made earlier, have been sort of programmed to think that that's the direction we need to go. So things that we do that continue to drag us deeper into that darkness are, drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships, toxic jobs. Again, we have the power within ourselves, regardless of whether you see a healer or not, to really make decisions that can continue to lift you up into those higher levels of vibration. And I think it's as simple as, like Drake used to say to me, it's the warrior's practice, it's meditation, it's yoga, it's exercise, it's food. That's what I love so much about Greg and all the work he does, is that really empowering people to understand that our soils are contaminated. Our food doesn't give us the nutrients, but guess what? There's other opportunities for you to heal your body. Mm-hmm. But there's just, I think we now are finally coming out of a time where people just didn't understand how much of this we were just fed this information about eat this food or do this or whatever. And I think people are much more interested in becoming their own healers. And there's tremendous power in resiliency.
Sensing yourself.
Right. And really starting to understand that you have those tools within yourself, or you can add those tools to your toolbox, like Reiki or any of these other things that we've talked about.
There's so much out there. It's so fun.
Unbelievable. And like I say, just being in this space, talking to you about it today really does me a lot of good. But as we wrap up, I was wondering if you'd kind of take a peek at me, maybe align me. I don't know. I've been feeling stressed. I've been feeling you know, a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Some loss. And
So I knew before I even got here today, it was emotional. You're going through something emotional, and the earth, the moon. Okay. So you, Tim, as I think you already know, you're an empath. So you feel vibrations around you, you feel vibrations of other people, and you take them on. And the full moon cycle that we're in is all about releasing energy. So it bubbles things up. It's like putting a pot of water on the stove and everything just starts bubbling. So the full moon energy is encouraging you to release it. That's why it's bubbling up. That's why you're getting emotional. That's probably why the pain has come back on, and the sciatica, your temple, your body is experiencing it. That's what I'm seeing for you. And so it's just being mindful of it and understanding that all emotion is sacred and letting it go. But I feel that part of it is nourishing your temple, which is your body, which is where you're kind of, to me, energy, you're like a bubble. Your body is just what connects your bubble to the earth vibration. And also you are grieving. So that's part of what it is. You've let go of something that was dear to you. And it's really important for you to know that you did it for the greatest good and you did it for no unselfish purpose, but there's a part of your heart that feels like you've let yourself down.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's important for you to know that that's okay. Let it go, feel it. And you did everything right. It's all divine timing.
Cool.
So you're exactly where you need to be. And it's okay, and it's hard, but you did it, and for all the greatest good. And there's so many new doors I see opening for you, and windows and opportunities to redirect that energy. So it's okay to grieve. Grief and sorrow is a sacred emotion. So you're grieving right now, and I knew emotionally that's also why we're blue, because blue is the throat chakra, right? It's speaking your communication. It's letting things flow. So that's what I'm sensing around you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sensing that around me too, to be honest. And it's, it's okay. Like, I'm definitely in tune with my energy.
Yeah.
I'll often just say to somebody, hey, today is a day where I'm
And honor yourself in being quiet.
Yeah.
And honor yourself in feeling that, and honor yourself in forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
Forgive yourself first, and all will be okay.
Cool. I can't wait to hang out with you again. Like another session, really.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
of
serious.
Course.
And again, I think I'm feeling like I'm at that point, where I need to, find a little different alignment. But as I'm in tune with my energy, I really do feel good about the opportunities, like not just for me, but I'm sensing really, really, really good stuff for this year. And it's partly because I want to impose that on whatever else is out there, that I'm saying it's going to be good and I'm ready for it to be good, and I want it to be good. So I'm trying to impose that feeling on 2022.
Words are powerful. Everybody listening, words are powerful. Thoughts are powerful. Emotions are powerful. Yeah. Be mindful of that. When you speak low vibration words or things like that, it really creates a vibration, and you have the ability to shift that. And we all do it.
Yeah, that's really what Drake. I check out Drake Powell's website, POWE, because he's really the one that pointed that out to me, is all the negative self-talk that I did, the self-deprecating. He's like, you got to knock it off. That stuff manifests.
It does.
It's really powerful. And again, he's such an incredible teacher, just like Denise and Rick. And I definitely check out. He's got a not a podcast, but he writes a blog, and he's very much into the Stoics. He's just really a wise person who took his own childhood, just deep pain, and has turned that into a way of healing himself and healing others.
Well,
and your left, right? Your left hip that I'm still feeling. When we have energy stuck in our legs, it's about moving forward. So you are still being challenged and moving through challenges to move forward, to not be stuck.
I've been cramping in both of my legs.
Yeah, that's energy. Okay, so part of that is energy. And it's about when we have blocks in our legs, it's usually because we're facing something that we might be restricting ourselves from moving forward. So that's also what the universe is trying to help you release, so that you can move freely into where you're
Oh,
going.
I'm ready to move forward. I
Awesome.
can say that.
Awesome. So grieving and all of it. So it's all connected.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Denise. Great tree healing. And Annie Spaeth here from the Lynhall in a cool space where we got to talk about us, me, you, energy, feeling good about things, potential, realization, visualization, putting the good spirit forward. I mean, I hope you feel it when you come to my places. I hope you feel it on your own first. But thank you for joining me at Niver Niver Land. You too. This has been fun, informative, and really, really cool. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Tim.
Cheers.
Thank you.